Okay, so today we're going to talk about the different types of qualitative research. So for this lesson, these are our learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to first recognize the different types of qualitative research. Second, we'll also be able to, or will also provide examples of research for each type, or sample research for each type. And then third is uh, recognize the different types of biography. So let's start with the phenomenology. So phenomenology or phenomenological research refers to the descriptive study of how individuals experience a certain phenomenon. So in here, we are trying to understand the different experiences of people about a certain situation. Also, for the fundamental question under a phenomenology, we need to answer the question, what is the meaning, the structure, and essence of the lived experiences of this phenomenon by a persons or person? So we're going to ask them of their experiences, the meaning of each experience or each thing that they have encountered or experienced, the way how they experience things, and the importance of these things to our respondents. In addition, some of the common methods or techniques wherein we can gather or we can use to gather information under a phenomenology are in-depth interviews and the participatory rapid appraisal or the PRA. PRA enables the researchers to interact with vulnerable people to share, enhance, and analyze their knowledge of life conditions to plan, act, and monitor and evaluate what they have observed and experienced. So PRA somehow enables the researchers to uh, actively interact with their respondents. So those are some of the ways in which we can gather information from on a phenomenological research. And then lastly, a phenomenology often seeks commonalities across individuals rather than focusing on what is unique about our respondents. So meaning after gathering information or when we are gathering information, we try to look for some of their similar experiences, some of uh, things that uh, are common among our respondents. And if, for example, we'll be able to reach or identify these common things among them, somehow we could say that we could already, uh, that we have already gathered um, enough pieces of information to support our study. So again, in here, we try to understand the experience of our experiences of our respondents about a specific phenomenon or a specific situation. So some examples of a phenomenological research are the following. So we have, what is the essence of people's experiences when they found out that their loved ones has terminal cancer? So what are their reactions? What are the things that they have done after knowing these uh, after knowing that their loved one has cancer or terminal cancer? Next is, what coping mechanism do patients employ before a major surgery? So knowing the things that these people do before having a surgery or a major surgery. Explain those, for example, practices or those things that they are doing. And then, what is the essence of students' experiences on uncaring teachers? So, for example, observing or interviewing people or students with this specific kind of teachers, comparing and contrasting these experiences to have a generalization or a general understanding of the situation. And then lastly, what are the common experiences encountered by a person with a spouse who is undergoing rehabilitation? So again, knowing, understanding the experiences of people who are encountering a specific kind of situation. That's the main focus of a phenomenology research or phenomenological research. Next type of uh, qualitative research is ethnography. So the term ethnography comes from the words ethno means people and graphy means writing. So meaning in this kind of research, we try to uh, discover and describe the culture of a certain group of people, or for example a minority. So we tend to study the things that they are doing, their culture, the tradition of these people, uh, their beliefs. So those are the things that we might study under an ethnography. Also, the central importance of an ethnography is the concept of culture. So, for example, what are the system of beliefs of this group of people? What are their values, their norms, the practices or their practices, the language they speak, the rituals and material things the group members use to understand their worlds, or what are the things that they are using, for example, in their community, what are the meaning of these things, for example, when they are having rituals, what are the things that they use, meaning behind those rituals. So those are the things that we need to study, we need to understand, explore in an ethnography. The researchers immerses with the people and becomes a part of their culture. So that's a one uh, thing that researchers must do under an ethnography. So they must live with the respondents. Okay, they must live with the community that they are studying. So the basic question that an ethnography must answer is, what are the cultural characteristics of this group of people or this cultural scene? So that's the major question that we must answer when conducting an ethnography, to explain the characteristics of that culture, to explore the culture of that specific group of people, to understand the meaning, the concepts behind their culture. Those are some of the aspects that we need to explore under an ethnography. And for example, we're done with the research paper, we're done with the research itself. The final ethnography, the paper itself, the report, should provide a rich and holistic description of the culture of group under study. So we must come up with a rich explanation of their culture, their heritage, their tradition, must be able to explain it uh, carefully so that others will be able to understand the things that they are doing. That others will be able to appreciate the things that they are doing, or that this specific group of people are doing. So that's our one of our goals in an ethnography. And so here's an example of a research of an ethnography. Ayan. So what is the demographic profile? So focusing on the demography of the people living in a certain community and their and migratory adaptations of squatter families in Barangay Cutkut, Angeles City. So this is conducted by De La Cruz in 1994. So studying, understanding the things that these informal settlers had done when they migrated from one place to the Kutkut or Barangay Kutkut in Angeles City. So also their demographic profile. So understanding the uh, their ages, understanding their, for example, knowing the gender, so that we could have data of, for example, the number of people who transferred from one place to this specific barangay, and then somehow relating it to uh, the process that they have encountered when they transferred. So that's under ethnography. Next type is a case study. Case study is a detailed account or depth examination and analysis or of one or more cases. So your case could be an individual, it could be groups of people or institution, for example. So you're going to study them, okay? So you could only have one respondent, for example, or one case, or you could have several cases that belong to a certain group of people or to a community. So the fundamental question or the foundational question that must be answered by a case study is, what are the characteristics of this single case or of these comparison cases? So basically identifying the characteristics, the aspects of your case, okay, the things that, for example, influence your case, or the things that affect your case. Those are the things that we must identified under a case study. And so a case is a bounded system. It could be, again, a person, a group of people. It could also be an activity. So for example, tasks or processes. And so those are some possible cases. So an activity that is done by a specific person or a specific group of people, those could be a possible case, or those could be some possible cases. So because the roots of a case study are interdisciplinary, so many different concepts and theories can be used to describe and explain the case. So in here, we'll use different theories, different concepts, principles in order for us to explain, for example, the actions of our case or of our cases. Uh, we'll use different bases or foundations in order for us to elaborate these things that we'll discover when conducting a case study. So, in a case study, we must use different methods of data collection that can be used to, for example, we're going to use unstructured interviews, observations. We could also use document analysis. We could use personal notes, diaries, and even questionnaires. So those are the things that we can. Okay, so when you are conducting a case study, you may rely on different methods in order for you to gather your data. So next, the case study final report. So the paper should provide, just like in an ethnography, it should provide a rich and holistic description of the case and its context. So we must be able to explain the different aspects, the different factors, the different perspective, things that might affect our cases. So we should provide vivid and detailed explanation of the case. We must describe the whole picture and the parts of these specific cases when we are writing or having the final case study or the final draft of our case study. So it also involves a comprehensive and extensive examination of a particular individual, group of people, or situation over a period of time. So it provides information on where to conclude the impact of significant event in a person's life, according to Sanchez in 2022. So meaning, when you are having a case study, uh, it is not enough if you will just observe your case or cases once, so you must conduct several set of observations when having a case study. So in order for you to gather enough data that you can use in explaining your case or some factors that, for example, affect your case. So you'll immerse yourself, or you researchers will immerse yourselves with your cases. So you'll conduct it for a quite long time, not just for a short period of time. So here are some examples of case studies. So for example, teenage pregnancy in the public high schools. So for example, studying uh, several cases, okay, several uh, teenage moms from schools or different public schools in the Philippines, for example. So those could be one topic. Fly-by-night schools, quality education, or quantity of enrollment. So it is somehow an issue lately in the Department of Education and even on CHED. Um, these fly-by-night schools, or they also call it diploma mills. Okay, so and how does or do these uh how do this specific type of education affect the quality of education in the Philippines? He does, I do, a grab mentality in the workplace. So that's also one possible cases. How does this specific type of mentality affect the function of, for example, a company, a specific institution, bringing home office goodies? So how does this affect yung productivity or the function of the institution? Health behavior tracking via mobile games, a case study among students discipline and academic performance through child-friendly school environment, a case study, victims of love, a case study, and then how do cancer survivors look at life. So for example, on the last topic, in this type of research, or in this example, the researchers will be able to give an overview of the problem by interviewing a cancer survivor and uh, interviewing him or her about his or her experiences. So, for example, the readers will have a view on the things that a cancer survivor uh, experience. For example, when he or she is having his or her chemotherapy, radiation sessions. So those are some of the things that we might encounter in a case study, for example. So next is a grounded theory. So this study is the development of inductive, so bottoms up theory that is grounded directly in the empirical data. So grounded theory is an inductive approach to research. So in here, we'll gather uh, specific details. So experiences, okay, we'll use the experiences of our respondents in formulating a generalized concept or theory that might explain those pieces of information. So uh, will deal with empirical data, or for example direct experiences, or things that we have observed as researchers. Those could be the basis of formulating a theory. So foundational question of a grounded theory: what theory or explanation emerges from an analysis of data collected about this phenomenon? So we might also encounter, or we might also be dealing with a situation in a grounded theory. But in order for us to explain it, we need to have pieces of information, details, specific details. Uh, we need to have the experiences of people who have encountered that situation or that phenomenon, and then later on combine these information to formulate a general concept or a general theory. So it is usually used to generate a theory. So we'll formulate a hypothesis, for example, that will be tested uh, in a quantitative research. And then it can also be used to test or elaborate upon previously grounded theories, as long as the approach continues to be one of constantly grounding any changes in the new data. So aside from formulating a new theory, grounded theory can also be used if we want to uh, test, if we want to explain, if we want to elaborate or validate an existing grounded theory. So wherein we will gather new pieces of information to support these grounded theories, or these theories that have been formulated by other researchers. So in a grounded theory, these are some of the methods that we can use when collecting data, or we're going to compare collected units of information. So we're going to use different approaches in understanding and analyzing these pieces of information. So the method involves comparing collected units of data against one another until categories, properties, and even hypotheses that state relation or relationships between these categories and properties emerge. So we're going to compare, contrast information gathered from several methods. So these hypotheses are tentative and suggestive and are not tested in the study. So meaning, one of the possible results of a grounded theory will be hypothesis. So hypothesis formulation, or formulating hypothesis, will be one of the results of a grounded theory. So four important characteristic of this theory, meaning the hypothesis or the concept that we'll make after analyzing the data, are the following. First, the theory must fit. So does the theory correspond to a real world data? So for example, the theory covers certain set of information that is taken from the experiences of our respondents. Second, understanding. So is the theory clear and understandable? So is it comprehensible? Is it relatable? So uh, when explaining or presenting this theory, readers or audience must be able to understand it. Third is generality. So is the theory abstract enough to move beyond the specifics in the original research study? So it must be broad, it must be wide, it must cover some set of data or information that if we'll be able to pursue research to prove this in the future, we'll be able to gather more pieces of data uh, to prove it. Okay, so to validate the theory. And the last is control. So can the theory be applied to produce real world results? So for example, the hypothesis that we'll be able to formulate after conducting a grounded theory type of study, can we somehow use this hypothesis to prove something? So to apply it in real world situations. So those are the characteristics of the theory that will be able to formulate after a grounded theory type of research. So some examples of a grounded theory are the following. So we have here a situation. So the school counselors were given structured interviews to help them determine how their professional identity is formed. So that's for example one possible situation. So example of researches under a grounded theory. So Bangsamoro people, minorities in their homeland. So they are live or these people are living in Bangsamoro, but they are considered as minorities, or one of some few people living in that kind of area or place. The magical powers of Christians in developing the fertile island of Mindanao. So this data was coded first to form concepts, and then later on, connections between these concepts were identified, and the core concept emerged, and its process and implications were discussed. School counselors, um, School counselors' professional interactions were identified as defining experiences in their identity formation. So basically, that's the process in which a grounded theory is presented. So one possible process that you may follow in conducting a grounded theory. So next is biographical study or narrative analysis. So it is an exhaustive account of a life experience. So meaning in a biographical study, we're going to study the life of an individual. So it is the collection and analysis of an intensive account of a whole life or a portion of a life, usually by an in-depth and structured interview. So in a biographical study, we could analyze the life or the whole life of a person, or we could just focus on a certain portion of his or her life. So the account may be reinforced by semi-structured interviewing or personal documents, rather than concentrating upon a snapshot of an individual's present situation. The biographical approach emphasizes the placement of the individual within a center of social connections, historical events, and the life experiences. So in here, aside from observation, for example, if your case or your the person you're studying is still alive, you could also conduct a semi-structured interview, ask other person or people who know that uh, respondent of yours or yung the person we're studying. You could also study or analyze personal documents if that specific person is keeping a journal. So you could also analyze it and get data from that document. So here are some of the common types of biography. First is scholarly chronicles. So scholarly chronicles focus on the historical portrayal of an individual. So meaning we could study the contribution of this person to our community, his or her contribution on his or her country. So that's scholarly chronicles. So next is intellectual biography. So intellectual biography forsakes the need for basic chronological structure, and it develops a narrative of a life through conceptual analysis. So in intellectual biography, we're going to tell the life of an individual in chronological structure. So from birth up to the present time, or from birth to death, for example. And then we're going to present his or her development through a narrative. So studying, presenting some of his or her experiences along the way. So that's intellectual biography. Next is life history writing. So this is the recording of life memories, experiences, whether once or another. So meaning in a life history writing, so you as a researcher could record your own life experiences, or one will do it for you. So that specific person uh, will narrate your life. Okay, will record your memories, your experiences when you are uh, for example, doing things, when you are accomplishing some tasks, when you are sharing your thoughts. So there's an individual who will record those things about you. And then we have memoir biography. So memoir biography is designed to give emphasis on the stylistic presentation of the biographer's reflections and insights in relation to the factual account of life. So in here, we're going to um, present um, the possible things we've learned from one of our experiences. Uh, the information that we've got from experiencing a certain situation in our lives. So those are some of the possible content of a memoir biography. For example, you have encountered or experienced a certain situation has that left a big impact on your life. So we could somehow share it through a memoir biography. How does that situation change your perspective, your views in life? So those could be some of the topics or information included in a memoir biography. Last is a narrative biography. So narrative biography is a non-fiction account of life experiences of a person. So um, it is considered as a creative nonfiction. So you're going to narrate your life experiences or narrate a life experiences of a person in a most creative way. So sharing his or her experiences, sharing the things that he or she has encountered while he or she is living or when he or she is, for example, accomplishing tasks in her or his daily life. So next is discourse analysis. Discourse analysis is defined as the analysis of language beyond the sentence. So it deals with texts, interactions, and social practices at the local, institutional, and societal levels. It is a broad term, sorry, it is a broad term for the study of the ways in which language is used by people, both in written and spoken contexts. It melds linguistics and sociology by considering the social and cultural context in which language is used. So basically, um, we're going to study language in context. So how do people use a specific language? How do they use this language at home? In public places or when they are conversing in their offices, how do they use this kind of language or, for example, this type of language? So materials that are suitable for discourse analysis include books, newspapers, periodicals, brochures, and advertisements. So anything wherein we can observe the use of a specific language in different contexts. Those are the things that we can analyze under a discourse analysis. So topics for discourse analysis include sounds or intonations. So what are the different sounds of that specific language? The intonation uh, used in using that kind of language. So those could be uh, studied under a discourse analysis. We could also study the gestures, the syntax of that specific language, lexicon or the words and their meaning or meanings, style, rhetoric, meanings, speech acts, the movements or the moves of our speakers when they are using the language, strategies when they are speaking, when they are sharing ideas, and other aspects of interaction or communication. So those are the things that we might consider when we want to pursue a discourse analysis. So anything that concerns the use of language uh, is or could be a topic under a discourse analysis. So here are some examples of a discourse analysis. The music of everyday speech, prosody, and discourse analysis. Talk that counts, age, gender, and social class differences in speaking language. So how do uh, these factors affect the use of English language when we are speaking. So what good speakers do in conversation, a discourse analysis. So for example, the preparation, uh, uh, their movements, their gestures when they are speaking. So those could be some of the aspects that the researcher had studied under this specific example. And then a discourse analysis on the impact of modern technologies on communication. So how do technological devices, or for example, modern technologies affect our communication or the communication process nowadays? Next is historical research. Historical research is a method of examination of evidence in understanding past events. So meaning we're going to study history and we're going to examine some pieces of information that will somehow help us to understand these historical events or situations. So it is particularly applied to evidence contained in documents, although it can be applied to all artifacts. So one of our major source of information in historical research will be documents written about that specific situation in our history. So we could also study artifacts, for example, but um, um, we might ask for the assistance of experts when dealing with this kind of things or with this kind of data source. So while in document analysis, if we have the mastery of analyzing several pieces of documents, uh, we might be able to analyze it ourselves or without the help of or the assistance of others. But if, for example, the document is written in a different language, so we might be able to ask assistance for an interpreter or a translator, for example. So it involves studying, understanding, and interpreting past events, as we have stated a while ago. The purpose of historical research is to reach insights and or conclusions about past persons or occurrences. So we'll be able to explain, for example, why this specific individual has had acted that way. For example, in the past. So or how do past events impact or affect our daily living or our present situation in today's world? So those could be some questions that might be answered by a historical research. So some examples of this type of research: the Cold War and its consequences for the world. Also, the impact of Martin Luther King's speech. For example, how do how does this speech affect the perception, the mindset of individuals after reading or encountering this? And so the Crusades and the Jihads, similarities and differences. So comparison, comparative research. So the Bangsamoro identity struggle and Bangsamoro basic law as the path to peace, historical analysis. So these are some of the possible examples of historical research. Next is narrative report. A narrative report is designed to present things or events that have happened in the past through a logical progression of the relevant information. So basically, presenting a situation in a chronological order. So narrating or telling how this event happened. So the main purpose of a narrative report is to present actual depiction of what has occurred. So we'll be needing a sharp memory when we are dealing with a narrative report, because you need to recall uh, the order in which events happened in the past. So here are some examples of a narrative report. So high school life, the most unforgettable life of students. Finding love, how I met my soulmate. Basically, just a recollection on how a person encountered his or her loved one. Finding beauty in the printed world, how I learn poetry. So sharing the process of learning poem or learning poetry. Ayan. So vocabulary building of students through proper solid waste management. And then lastly, my first love never dies. So um, it can somehow be compared to a biographical analysis or biographical study. Narrative report could be one way to write a biographical study. So, or a narrative report could be a piece of document that a biographical analysis is studying. So, last type of qualitative research is an action research. Action research is a classroom-based or school-based research that seeks transformative change through the simultaneous process of acting and doing research, which are linked together by critical reflection. So this type of research is commonly conducted by teachers to give solution to the existing problems to improve students' academic performance and positive attitudes. So this type of research is usually conducted by teachers. Um, they will be determining a certain problem or concerns in their classrooms or in their classes and then try to look for a solution to somehow resolve the problem or for example to improve the current situation of their classes. So an action research is a cyclical process, so meaning it involves a series of um, observation, applying the solution, and then observation, and then applying again the solution to somehow determine if there is really an improvement on the quality of education that a teacher is giving. So it is usually qualitative in nature. Most of the time, action research uses natural language rather than numbers. So we'll be dealing with quantitative data. We'll be dealing with observation interviews. Ayan. So the use of natural language suits a paradigm which is participative and responsive to the situation. So that's it. Okay, that's the different types of qualitative research. So I hope that you'll be able to um, understand the difference among this type of qualitative research, and you'll be able to choose the appropriate type of qualitative research for your chosen topic. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day ahead.